What's going on, guys? Anton Gray, business coach and strategist here, and welcome to Peace of Mind, the mindset behind the mission. Listen, I am so thankful that you're here, and I want to first welcome you and say thank you for tuning in. I know that 24 hours is never really enough, so for you to come and spend one with myself and my special guest is greatly, greatly appreciated. So I'm always curious as to how far this show reaches. So if you can, let me know where you're tuning in from and when you're catching the broadcast. Now, the goal of this show, guys, is to introduce you to some of the most mission and impact-driven entrepreneurs there are. But not only will we be talking about their stories and their mission, but we'll also be pulling back the curtain to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and the downs of entrepreneurship, business, and life. Guys, this isn't what you see on social media. These are real entrepreneurs, and these are their real stories. These are their trials, their triumphs, their joys, their failures, everything. And they're going to be telling the real side to entrepreneurship. Now, my ultimate goal for you is to help you recognize and acknowledge your inner greatness and inspire you to share it with the world. But I also hope that you learn something here, or you hear something that really resonates with you that you can take away and you can implement in your business and your life. So I've got a very special guest that I want to bring to you, and it's actually in a different niche, something that we haven't had on this show just as of yet. And so this will be a very interesting conversation. But before we get to it, I got to lay down some quick ground rules. So rule number one, guys, sharing is caring. Okay. I know for a fact that there's somebody in your network or your circle of friends that can really benefit from the information that's going to be shared here today. So find that button on or around your screen, hit it, send it out to your network, and invite them to join the conversation. Rule number two, guys, show some love. Our speaker is going to be dropping some golden nuggets of knowledge. So if you hear something that really resonates with you, or you happen to have an aha moment, find that thumbs up button, that heart button, that haha emoji, whatever suits your fancy, and hit it a couple times to let us know you're picking up what we're putting down. And rule number three, guys, this show is for you. All right. So I invite you in to join the conversation. If you have questions throughout the broadcast, please feel free to drop them in the comments section, and either myself or my special guest will try to get it answered throughout the broadcast. If we happen to miss one or two or a few, we'll go back and make sure that your questions get answered. So those are the ground rules. Let's get this show on the road. So the guest that I'm bringing to you today, he's an amazing gentleman. He knows business in and out, and I actually met him at a mastermind. Guys, if you haven't seen a pattern, I met a lot of my guests at mastermind. So I encourage you to get out to events and meet people, shake some hands, and really build some relationships. But I met him at a mastermind, and I learned about what he does and what he's done in the past. And I was just amazed by the amount of success that he's had. But I met him at a point in his business where he was actually making a pivot and, moving into something a little bit different. And he'll be telling that story. But it's just amazing. And he's had one hell of a ride as it relates to entrepreneurship and business. So I bring to you, without further ado, the one, the only, Jason Hurst. Jason, what's going on, brother?
How's it going, Anton? Good to be here.
Good, man. I'm glad that we finally made this happen. I think it's been a long time coming. We've been having trouble getting our schedules meshed, but we're here. And you're in a very, very special niche. It's nothing that I've had on the show before. You're a chiropractor and consultant. So for those that don't know you, do me a favor, break it down real quick. I never feel I do the introductions well. So tell the people who you are and what you do.
All right, man. Well, as Anton said, I'm Jason Hurst, and I'm a chiropractor. I've graduated back in 2005 from St. Louis, Chesterfield, St. Louis, Missouri area. And first going out or getting out of the gate, I struggled like most chiropractors do. We're taught how to treat patients, but we don't know anything about business. And so when I first started with the whole opening up my first business, I did have some other doctors that were coaching me and consulting me, and they really helped along with the headspace, the mindset, the business skills and everything. But when I look back now, when my biggest struggles, and this is probably what I see a lot with even other people that I've coached over the years, whether it was chiropractors or even other entrepreneurs, is when we leave that that space from from a workforce to the entrepreneur side, we bring the employee mindset with us, whether we want to or not. And that's what I was even doing here. I was running my own business, but I treated it like a job. So I wasn't able to grow the way I look at it now, the way I easily could have, because I was just kind of clocking in and clocking out, even though I had guidance from other doctors. So we were seeing growth, but it was only like incremental. It wasn't like an explosion doing really great or anything. And that was my first office that we had up around the Chicago area. And after being there about 3 years, my wife and I, his girlfriend at the time, she's a chiropractor as well. We decided to move out to Virginia because that's where her family, her parents lived, and thought, well, got to be close to somebody, right? So chose to be close to her parents. And so we opened up a practice here thinking that, okay, here's the deal. At least we were this successful at Chicago. So if we just open the doors, do everything kind of the similar way, everything's going to be rosy. We're at least going to start off. First year is going to be pretty good. It wasn't even close to that, man. We literally, that first year of being open, we opened up in February, and by the end of the year, we collected $80,000 for the year. Now, with chiropractors, even if you struggle the first year, the chiropractor usually has a spouse's salary or something to fall back on, right?
Right.
We didn't, because we run the same office together. So our take home was only $19,000. We literally were making less than you can make at any job without even an education, right?
Wow.
So we were like, holy crap, what are we going to do? Because at this point, we were already over $300,000 in student loan debt between us. We borrowed over $100,000 from the bank to open up our clinic. We borrowed, I think it was around $80,000 from our parents on top of it because we couldn't get enough from the bank.
Wow.
We were like almost $500,000 in debt, completely failing. So we were terrified. And at that time, we ended up finding, it was just kind of like one of those strokes of luck type thing. I had a Post-it on my computer monitor, that from another chiropractor that was trying to get some clients to work on his program, like a niche program.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, nobody really called it niches or niche, like everybody's calling it now. But it was more or less just a program that was a cash-based system with chiropractors to where you just work on chronic pain conditions. And we thought, what the heck, we're about to literally go bankrupt. We didn't know how we were going to pay anything back. So I look at this number, this Post-it, and usually that stuff ended up in the trash can. And instead I decided, let's call them and find out what this is about. We gave them a call and instantly knew that it was something we wanted to try. And it was crazy because working through that system in the first month, we collected $60,000.
Oh, wow.
In the first year, we collected 80, right? And then by the third month, we were already at $80,000. So, wow. And we were consistently, this started back in 2010. And ever since, we consistently have hit, even on a low month, maybe 50,000, but it was generally like 60 to 90 to 100,000. And then we had some really huge months after that, or in between, just depending on the season and time of year and stuff, as far as when patients would actually come to you. But here we went from, no joke, like 80,000 in annual collections to having a 7-figure practice. And it was crazy. And so we did that for quite a few years. And then, it's kind of with everything else, things got stale, a little bit boring and stuff for us. And we ended up just searching for the consulting side and working with other chiropractors as well. You're good, man. I got one too.
Yeah, so my apologies for that. I had one of my little ones break in.
No, that's all right.
But no, you know what? That's a very interesting story. And just kind of hearing you were on the brink of bankruptcy before you really got started. Now, I want to rewind, though, and educate me a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, you went to college for this particular area.
No,
right?
No, I went back to school. See, when I graduated high school, I was one of those. I grew up blue collar family. I remember my parents, when I was going to college, my parents were even trying to help me decide whether or not college was right, or if I should just go become like one of the technical institute type things, because I was not a studier. I started working at a sawmill up the road from my house when I was in middle school. I worked at golf courses. I worked for the highway department. I babysat, worked on farms when I was a kid. I mean, I did all this stuff as like a child.
Right.
And so by the time when I was going through high school, I had no study skills. And I know a lot of like the self-made entrepreneurs that they're the same way. They could care less about school. And when I was younger, that's the way I was. I had no desire to learn or study or anything. And when I went to college, holy crap, I had zero guidance there. I was getting D's and F's in classes. I was having to retake things. I finally get out with my degree in AutoCAD, drafting, design, computer integrated manufacturing type stuff. And I thought it was going to be like something that I enjoyed, but I did that for like 3 or 4 years. Wasn't too happy with it because I was still just so confused in my early 20s. I even went into finally joined the Army, went through the National Guard, went through training there, did all that. And here it was, I think it was, I believe the year was like 1998 or 99 when I decided that I was like, okay, I need to do this going back to school thing. And one of my other friends just decided he was going to go to be a chiropractor. And I was like, damn, it's something I always wanted to do. And I was like, if he can do it, I can do it. So, it was like I ended up following him along that path too.
So was the typical path from pretty much going to school and studying what it takes to be a chiropractor to jumping right into entrepreneurship and opening your own practice? Or do people take a path, kind of like the traditional where they go to school, they study about it, and then get a job in that field? Like, is that the traditional path?
I guess it's kind of like 50-50, or maybe the stats are even higher with associates. That's whenever a doctor graduates and they don't open their own, they become an associate. From where I'm from, it's a small town in Indiana, and literally almost every chiropractor back then, they had their last name chiropractic, right? So it was like, for me, it'd be Hurst Chiropractic. So everybody opened their own clinic. So when I went to school, I didn't think there would be any other option than to just open my own.
Gotcha.
And so, but yeah, there's a lot of doctors that's just like within the medical field where they open up or they graduate and then they just go work for a hospital or for a group of doctors or something. They just become maybe partner within it somehow.
Right.
As time goes on. But yeah, it was for me, my whole guidance, even with my own mind, it was just always that I was going to open my own clinic. But then here I was graduating back in 2005. I was like, I don't have 2 nickels, man. How am I going to open up a practice?
Right.
And that's where I ended up finding those doctors where they financed and got me set up. But then it was a split between the money that was made with how the clinic produced.
Wow, man, that's a huge difference between, I guess even back then, going into a business model that's brick and mortar and having to take on overhead and debt just out the gate, right? Versus now, starting a business, if you've got an internet and a some type of laptop or smart device, you can start a business. And so the risks are a little bit, I guess it's a bit different right now. It's the time versus the actual money. Granted, there are businesses where you have to put money in, but not taking on the type of debt that you took on out the gate, man. That's what goes through your mind as you hop into that and as you see this money coming from the banks and building up.
Well, the whole thing, it's scary as heck, man. And I guess it's funny you bring that up because I know we had even talked about it like last week when we got on the phone together. That was when I branched away then, even recently within the last couple of years, and started doing some other consulting for new chiropractors and then even for other entrepreneurs. But the pattern I was seeing is that nobody wanted to put any money in the game, right? The skin type stuff. The way you can literally just set up a LLC and buy ClickFunnels, buy something, build your funnel, and all of a sudden you're a business owner, right? So everybody thinks for $500 you can be a business owner, and then you see all these posts online about everybody complaining about that. Well, I don't have money for this or that. It's like you don't understand when you open a business like that, you're never ever going to grow if you don't put some money into it and start advertising and start growing in ways by getting a coach or a consultant to help you along the way. For me, graduating school, I had all my skills were as great as I thought they could be for adjusting and treating patients.
Right.
Tons of confidence there. I was even one of the group leads for like one of the adjusting clubs. I started going there even before, through the science program, before I even became a student, I was already going to an adjusting club, learning how to adjust each other, like students adjusting students. And so as the semesters went on, then I started teaching that as well. So my adjusting skills, all this stuff, I never had a problem with thinking that I was good there. But when you try to open up a business, man, if you don't get somebody to help you, you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Yeah.
So you're destined for failure, or else incremental growth so slowly that you don't know that you don't know.
Right. Yeah.
So finding somebody that's been there, done that, they can take you so far, so fast. It's crazy. And the people, like I think about the ones that I knew in all my heart that I could help, and they ended up saying, no, I don't have money, or they just didn't buy into me or the system or something. And I'd be like, what could I have done different?
Right.
To help them understand that they were literally 3 months from blowing it up, because they had the skills, they had the confidence, they had their own program set up, but they just didn't know how to put a pathway to it.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, man. And I think too, it's we live in a different age now, to where almost everything seems instant, right? I can click this button on my mouse on my laptop and something happens just like that. Where business is way different. Well, I guess there's still some aspects of business to where, if you're set up properly, to where you run some ads, you advertise right, and you're selling the right product, got the right offer in front of the right people, you can make a ton of money very quick. But, there still is some traditional models that, that's not the norm. And I think a lot of people are starting to expect that as the norm. But with that being said, though, I also know that you've had a ton of success with your practice, and you've built it up to levels that, I guess it's a bit challenging to get to. So talk about the success that you've had in your practice as well.
Well, I guess it's similar to almost any business. You see it all the time now, online, especially as well. Everybody's talking about that 7-figure business, right?
Yeah.
And same thing with chiropractic office. Again, I'm throwing numbers out myself. What I assume is the average, but it's probably like $250,000 up to $500,000 is where most offices are going to sit, because that's just it's everybody follows and copies and duplicates. Right. And when the majority of chiropractors, they trust that the insurance or they're nervous to leave the insurance game. And insurance is designed to not pay well. Right. Everybody thinks that insurance is there to help. And to a certain degree, they do. They offset costs to a degree. But their goal ultimately as an insurance company is to deny claims. Right. The more claims they deny, the more money they keep for their downline. Right. And so when it comes to even the payout between chiropractors, like when a chiropractor does physical therapy modalities in the office, we actually collect less than a physical therapist does for the exact same thing. And so that exponentially limits the number or the amount of money that you can collect. So that's why I'm kind of going down that road with you. So that's why the majority of offices are going to be stuck at $500,000 or less. It's only like there's always, I guarantee you there's some out there that may hear this talk that we're doing right now on the podcast, and they're going to totally disagree with it. Well, they're the ones that did turn it into $1 million practice through insurance, but they're a small percentage of it, right? It's a smaller group. And unless you leave the insurance world, which is scary as heck, and that's what we did back in 2010, and go cash only, it's terrifying to do it, but your chances of survival and blowing things up to a new level, that's where your true success can be. The biggest problem we ever faced along that way was people that didn't want other peers, other chiropractors, and even medical doctors that didn't want to see our success, that would end up trying to find ways to take us down. So that's like the craziest part of what you see within your local community. But if you got a strong enough backbone to deal with that, then it's, you almost kind of look at it as a badge of honor when somebody's trying to talk bad on you. That usually means that you're pretty darn successful and they're not.
Yeah. That's a great point, man.
Yeah. And so with that, what we did with it was mostly like laser decompression, vibration machines, the shockwave therapy, taking pretty much the best therapies, modalities that are out there and using that for chronic pain conditions. And, I pretty much, we got our own trademark program, laser vibe therapy. I created my own online course years ago. That was back in 2012. It's an online course where you can just go out and buy it for low back pain, where you do stretches and exercises, teaches you how to identify your own problems and then treat it as well. But then I use that course, and my patients now even get like a smaller version, a condensed version, where it's videos and manuals and audio files, meditation tracks, all this stuff that we put together to where it's literally just a life-changing program for somebody with chronic pain issues, whether it's like joint related with back, neck, knees, shoulders type stuff. And when the patients sign up with us, I mean, we got couple hundred, easily over a couple hundred testimonials just from the last few years of people that have just gone through the program, that surgery failed, injections failed, medication failed. They've been on the opioids, all these, the highly addictive stuff that everybody's talking about these days. And we were able to help stop the surgeries. Even people that had surgery with 10, 20 years of pain, we were able to help get rid of that pain. So it was a lot of word of mouth, but then we did commercial advertising and newspapers and everything too.
Nice.
So that's how that built up. And then we were on that end of the spectrum for chronic pain. And we tended to see, even now, we see mostly it's like the 65 and above. That's usually the chronic pain model or the age group that fits that. And so because it was a cash base, that's when we looked into the Joint, the chiropractic place, which is a franchise.
Okay.
I believe there's like over 400 total offices within the country. And I know a lot of people probably heard of them. Well, we own 3 of the franchises here. We opened up all 3 here in the Richmond area, Richmond, Virginia. And we had those running for a couple of years and just recently sold them last year.
Now, these were three franchises on top of your private practice as well?
Yeah. We opened those because we were looking at that more as the passive income idea. We wanted to open up these offices, be the absentee owner type thing. That's kind of what you hear within a franchise world sometimes is that, you open it up and you don't have to put as much work into it. You just hire your team. And a lot of the groups own multiple units and are doing extremely well with it. We were doing okay with it, but my wife and I, we were finding we were just consuming our time with it to a point that we were losing time with the other clinic, with like the one that was basically running everything or
Right.
providing for our family the most.
Right.
And so the first couple of years, like everything else, it took a while to build up. And then we got to a point where it was managing so many people that I realized one of my strengths is definitely not as a manager of people, right? The people wanting time off and all this stuff. Like when you go virtual the way you can now, everybody, you hire people when you need them. But when you have a full staff and it's 4 clinics and every single one of them on a given day is complaining about something, for me, it was like, what the heck did I get myself into?
Yeah.
And so we just pulled ourselves away from that side. We sold the 3 franchises. It was last year. It's been a little over a year. Yeah. And that's when I put a lot more focus and everything into the consulting side.
Awesome. Yeah, one, I understand franchises can be on the pricey side, so you must have been doing very well in the private practice to do that. And it's good to see. From what I know of you, you're always kind of thinking forward, right? And so you had your private practice, which was doing well, but you were thinking to continue to build on it and open up some franchises for the passive income. And saw that it was a little bit different than you anticipated. But you touched on one thing though. You touched on strengths and weaknesses. I always think this is a very interesting topic. Especially in dealing with entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and even small business owners. They take on a lot at a time, right? And they get into business and they've got to wear all these different hats. But you talked about strengths and weaknesses, or you found your weakness. How would you say is the best way for somebody to deal with that? And then I'll kind of give you my take on it as well.
What are you asking? Like how to deal with determining what your strengths are? Or
how to deal with determining what your strengths are. Now, so here's what I see sometimes. I see that people get into something for whatever their strengths are. And then, like I said, because you've got to wear so many hats, when you find these weak moments or these weak points in your business or in whatever you're taking on, it's you get blindfolded and you feel that you've got to learn and do everything. So what's your take on it, and how did you deal with managing what you felt was something you were weak at?
Yeah. again, this was all through my own personal failures, man. It's crazy. Every project that I started, no matter how much I personally know that you have to just work on your strengths and delegate, hire out your weaknesses, I find myself always going back to doing everything, right? Because there are so many times I've hired people and I end up teaching them what I need, right? You probably done it yourself. It's like, Jesus, I could just do this on my own. It's like, well, I'm done with trying to get people to do it. But the way I've always learned it too, it's there's a gentleman from Strategic Coach who I've been coached by. It's Dan Sullivan, genius within the coaching business world. He always talks about multiple philosophies and everything. And one of them is like the 80% rule type thing, to where you just start and you do your 80%. You don't worry about being perfect. You just jump in and get as much done as you can, delegate things down, and then work on just constantly improving along the way. Stop trying to always make everything perfect, basically. And that's when it came to my own strengths, I find myself always going back to, okay, I'm good at helping guide people. Like I look at somebody, even like I think we even talked about it last week, when you see these shows like Bar Rescue and that hotel thing and stuff. Like, I know they edit stuff down, but I could always do that too. If I just walk into a restaurant now, I could find 15 things that if they just change this, and this, they would blow this up, right?
Right.
And so for me, one of my strengths is definitely just doing that, helping to consult and go coach and guide people along the way. That's why I've been, in my opinion, at least, and a lot of my patients, I've been such a good doctor for them, is that I love helping people. But then on the management side, holy crap, that is not my strength. It's like I couldn't handle it. It felt like just a mountain of nonsense in my head when people were complaining all the time. I didn't know how to deal with it. I looked at my wife, Jackie. I was like, I said, you have to manage these people or I'm going to lose it. Yeah. And it wasn't because any of them were bad. It was just none of them individually knew that they were creating like this problem internally for me. And so the idea of like, how do you deal with it? If you're confused as even how to find your strengths, I'd recommend getting like the Strengths Finder. I think it's 2.0. It's a small book you can get. Kolbe, Kolbe. There's a Kolbe Index, or it's a personality type profile test that you can do. I've done that as well, and it helps to pretty much hone in and identify what you're good at. And those processes teach you how this is why you're failing, or this is why you're wasting so much time. This is why you're hitting burnout. You've got to make these radical changes in order to become better at what you're doing with your strengths.
No, that's a very good point. I'll have to check into those as well. Strength Finder and Kolbe, guys, make sure you write those down and you go check those out. Because I think it's incredibly important to identify, one, the things that you're good at in your business, and two, the things that you like to do in your business as well. Because if not, and you're focusing so much on improving your weaknesses, you shift into doing a lot of the things that you probably don't even like in the first place. And like you said, you go on and on and on, and you reach those points of burnout, and it pulls you kind of out of your zone of genius, so to speak. That keeps you moving towards whatever that end goal is that you establish when getting into the business. So then let's talk about your mission now, man. Let's talk about what it is that you do, who you help, because I know that you've had multiple pivot points in your business as well. So who do you help right now? What is your actual mission?
Well, right now we still treat patients, so we work on helping people get rid of the pain, because it's no matter how much I get away from it to work on my other projects, I still love working with people. I love getting people out of pain. But like I was saying earlier, everything's kind of got these moments where it's like, okay, I've been doing this for too long. I've never been one to settle. Like, there's chiropractors from my hometown that I know treat patients today the exact way they did 25 years ago. They haven't done anything different. And that's not me, man. I every few years, I'm trying to reinvent myself, trying to figure out what I can do different. And we didn't really make a pivot in the last few years as far as the treatment, because nothing really has struck me as being something better than what we already do. But that's where our pivot is with our our focus is, I mean, with helping the public as far as getting people out of pain. But then as far as helping other chiropractors, what my goal still is try to help, 1,000 chiropractors turn 1,000 or more within our profession, turning into the 7-figure business. That's what I would love to actually see. And, focusing on that, building those up, working with, it's because my wife and I try to put some very specific time with people. It's not just like this program that you can buy for $100 or, this masterclass thing. It's actually consulting, helping you figure out how to, from training your staff to treating your patients to what equipment to buy to how to save your money, even so you don't waste it like we did. When we hit that 80,000 a month, we blew through a lot of it because we had no knowledge of even what to do with our money. So we even try to help our clients learn how to invest and do things differently too, so they don't make the same mistakes as us. But that's where my biggest goal is helping chiropractors and still helping patients. You were talking about the pivot point. I still work with some entrepreneurs that are still clients that hired me even just a few months back. But what I started doing was even spreading out to helping other entrepreneurs open up and try to work on their coaching consulting business as well. And that's where I was noticing the disconnect that most of them had that I talked to when they haven't put any money in yet. Mm-hmm. And so then they're thinking, they're constantly debating whether or not they should hire somebody to help them because they haven't even put $1,000 into their own business yet. So to pay somebody $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 for the high ticket program just blows their mind, right? The idea of, okay, maybe I should borrow money. Maybe this is a business. I should borrow money from a bank. I should borrow money from mom and dad. I should not buy this $30,000 leased vehicle or $50,000, right? If you have a business, you have to treat it as a business, but because if you're just spending a couple $100 a month, you have a hobby. You don't have a business yet. Right. And so that's where the big disconnect was. So I still love working with the entrepreneur mind with people that are they want to become somebody. But my struggle with that was that it was just hard to find people that were at a level that wanted to go big. Right. Most of them were still that I spoke to, no matter how I was reaching them through my marketing and my targeting and everything. It just kept I kept seeming to find the ones that were only interested in trying to get as much for free as they could, thinking they can do it all on their own, watching a crap load of YouTube videos and all these downloaded posts and stealing everybody's material, right? And it's you can make it, but you're not going to make it quick, right? So the struggle for me was just working with them to a point of seeing any value to where I could build that side of my business without just burning myself out even faster than I did with everything else. So I still work with some of the entrepreneurs, but I decided to kind of put that one on hold. And now I'm back to focusing more on the chiropractic side again. Yeah. So again, the beauty was, for me at least, is that we've had ups and downs financially through all this, but we've never been in a place where I was like, we're going to lose everything, to where it's been fun. I've lost some money when making these shifts, definitely, but that's the whole risk it side of entrepreneurship. You got to be willing to go big. I remember that very first time back in 2010, I had to pay over $5,000 for my first full page newspaper ad. We had to give the coach, my consultant, we had to pay $8,000 up front. He was charging a $4,000 monthly fee. And we had to we leased one of the lasers. We had to buy another decompression machine. We literally were putting, I think the first month, we put over $40,000 into a system that we didn't even know was going to work.
Wow. And
that's what I'm talking about, being able to have the guts and the confidence in yourself that you got to be willing to put some money in. Now, in the online world, you don't have to put $40,000 in. You don't have to get a brick and mortar. You don't have to sign lease paperwork for a 5-year contract for a business site. You don't have to put out newspaper ads and run commercials and all this stuff that we did. It is so ridiculously easy compared to a brick and mortar. But if you haven't been on both sides, that's where it's hard for people to understand. You just got to be willing to put some money in the game.
That's a very good point. And I believe that there's a culture of entrepreneurs nowadays to where, it's a trade-off too. Would you prefer to risk money, right? Or prefer to utilize and risk time to build something up? But what I like about what you were talking about is even with you getting bored, so to speak, right? And saying it a bit different, but always looking to improve and get better, right? And so, I think that goes a long way in entrepreneurship, because even with that, wanting to improve, wanting to get better, comes some sort of change, right? And there's always some level of risk or something that has to be sacrificed or given up to make a change. And it's good to hear that, you as an entrepreneur still, even years in, are still striving to make change and to make more impact and to continue improvement. So I take my hat off to you there. So let's talk about some, since we're on the topic, let's talk about some things that you see people, entrepreneurs, business owners. What are some of like the top challenges that you see with them starting out, or maybe even share some of the mistakes that you felt you made early on, that looking back you would have changed? So either way you want to take it.
It's crazy you just asked that, because I was literally just thinking about it. I wanted to make sure to hit this point because it's where I seen my own personal failures through this whole journey, is trying to be something that you're not. Okay. The hard part, and just stick with me for a second here, the hardest part about it is even people we've been coached by, even people that we see, whether it's even just the familiar faces all the time, even Russell Brunson, how easy he is on camera, right? Marie Forleo, Brendan Burchard, doesn't matter who it is you're following or you're looking after, Gary Vaynerchuk. If you're trying to be like these people, but you're not, you're going to fail. You're trying so hard. And because for me, a lot of people don't really know it when they meet me, because I've learned how to condition myself to exteriorly portray something different, but I'm an introvert. And I don't like being in a crowd. I don't like being the center of attention, even though if you see videos I'm on with my Facebook stuff and all that, people would think that this guy's a showboat, but it's because I have to learn how to inflect that, right? Because that's what people expect. Otherwise you look like this weird guy just looking into the camera, and like, it's horrible, right? But what I learned was that when I was trying to duplicate those people, that it's just a gift for them. I was miserable. I couldn't find my path. I couldn't find the easy, like the ease of getting through to that.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the biggest things. You got to bust through that, the lack of confidence and the fear of criticism. Those are two big things too. That was one of the biggest things that held me up. I was so terrified a few years ago to do any kind of video like this podcast that we're doing now. Even just 2, 3, 4 years ago, when I was already still coaching and consulting, I was still so worried about what my peers would think, or what my family or people at home, like, what's this guy doing on this video, that it was keeping me from doing it. I kept putting things off. And I talk a lot about it too on some of my other videos and things that I put together. There are so many entrepreneurs that are just stuck doing busy work all day long on their computer, right? They're trying to perfect this or perfect that. The wife, the spouse, the husband, they're saying, when the hell are you going to launch this thing, right? When are you going to do this? You're like, I'm almost there. I'm almost done. But it's like you got it ready, but it's just that fear of either criticism or the lack of confidence to just finally let this thing go. So you got to be able to bust through that. And my biggest thing is talking about like working with other introverts, because an extrovert, this is where I know, where I've personally seen it with the coaches I've hired, the extroverts are annoyed by us. They're annoyed by the introvert, and you can almost hear it in their tone when they're coaching you. They don't know they're doing it, but they're doing it. They're kind of like, just like, why don't you get this, man? But when you're an introvert, it's like you need to hear things and you need to do things a different way, because that boisterous extroverted personality, it's just a gift for them. They can get in front of a camera at any time and just blow it up. And they're so casual and just confident with it. But the introverted guy is just, no matter how much you think you're throwing yourself out there, when you watch the video back, you're still like doing this. It looks horrible compared to those extroverts. So that's one of the biggest things that I would recommend for people is stop forcing yourself to try to be somebody that you're not. You got to find your lane and find your strengths and just and find a way to be successful that way. Because I guarantee you there's more introverts out there than there are extroverts. There's more people that are not the type A. Like, I mean, go all the way back to high school, middle school. There was always one or two people that just led everything, right? Everybody wanted to be them, but nobody was, right? So it's like the same thing as we age and we get older. We see these people, these figures online that, oh my God, I wish I was like that. They make it look so easy. You're not going to be that person. You never will. You have to accept it and find who you are. That's where the big, for me, my own personal failure was trying to become the same people that I admired, because it's not a fit. And that's where I found myself struggling all the time.
That is a great point and a great tip. And I think you're absolutely right. You know, we see these people, we put them on pedestals and we do our best to emulate them. But I also think it comes down to really defining what their goal, their vision, and their success looks like. Right. Because to everybody, it's going to be something different. So, you know, we can see a Gary Vee and say, oh, I want to be on stages and, you know, and just go hard and grind. And so that's what we emulate. So that's a very good point to identify, you know, who you are, what you want your future to look like, and, you know, find your, not necessarily comfortability, but find your path within your own path. And walk it out. And that's, you know, that's something to really think about. I do think that's really something to think about, man.
That ties into like with Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. He talks about unique ability, and it's about finding like what you are, like what your gifts are, what your uniqueness is, your skills, and build your life, build your business around that. Because that's what I was finding too when I was trying to force myself into a mold, or even when I've had coaches help guide me to coach a certain way. It was based on the way they thought that I would need to go, the way they saw the vision for my business, but yet it wasn't the way I internally felt comfortable. So there was that disconnect. There was that holdup of me getting to that point, because they were right if they were the ones doing it. But when I'm the one doing it, I need to just make a few shifts myself to make it my path, right? Yeah. And I talk about being like the competitive advantage. That's what you end up having to do. You have to have crystal clarity on what you do, who you serve, what your purpose is, what your vision is, what your gifts are, who you're going to be working with. You have to be clear on what you're doing. If you don't have clarity in what you're trying to do for your customer, your client, then they have no clue, because they're showing up looking at you and they don't know what you're about yet either. And it's the same thing within my chiropractic office. That was one of the reasons that so many chiropractors have such a hard time of determining who they want to be, because when we graduate, we're taught to believe that we can treat and adjust patients from the cradle to the grave, is like the ongoing statement. Literally from the day you're born, like for my son, he was born 2.5 years ago. I adjusted him that morning, right? And it's not the same crack, snap, pop that you do with a little infant. You barely just even touch and feel, palpate around, and you get the bones moving just by feel, just by a light adjusting. And then we adjust patients that are 100 years old, right? And it's through different means, different methods too. So that's how I used to run my business from 2005 to 2010. You come in my office, I'll treat you, man, because I was that desperate, right? But when there's no clarity, there's no niche or niche, whatever, no specialty. And when you're not finding your specialty, when you're not clear on what you do, then even your patients, I remember seeing my patients, they'd be like looking around, why is this infant in here? They'd be like blown away that a 40-year-old's looking at me treating a little infant, and then I go to the next table and I'm working on a 90-year-old.
Right.
So it's like there was just a confusion even in my office that I didn't realize was there until I decided to find my own specialty with chronic pain. And so it's without a doubt, that's the hardest part or hardest problem I believe that people find in this online world of entrepreneurship is you want to become something big, but you're watching, like we talked about, all these gurus, and all of them are in a different lane. And we're trying to be all of them, and you just can't. So you have to be clear on what you want to end up doing. And then you have to be competent in it, right? I mean, I see so many posts of these little idiots, and I say little because it's the youngest ones, where they say, all you need to do, man, is buy one book, read a book, and then you're an expert, and then you just sell it. That's the biggest BS on the planet. But that's how these people end up becoming these overnight sensations, because they conned people into it. And then after they became a millionaire, now they're telling you how they became a millionaire after living in their mom and dad's basement.
Right.
But lied to people the entire time of getting to that point. So there's a credibility issue you got to deal with on that. But I definitely believe you have to have at least a little more confidence in buying one book. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to go through that many years of school, but you do have to know what the heck you're doing in order to truly help somebody. So you got to have clarity. You got to have confidence, and then you have to have the confidence. That's how you deliver it, right? If you're not confident, if I didn't truly believe that I was an amazing doctor and doing what I do, then I wouldn't be helping the patients either. Right. I wouldn't be able to convince them that they need to be in my office and I can take care of them. Same thing with the other chiropractors and other entrepreneurs that I coach. If I didn't believe in myself, then why the heck would they believe in me? So without those things, without those three primary ingredients, you're never going to have a competitive advantage over anybody. And when you develop that competitive advantage by building your clarity, competence, and confidence, then it's almost like the gates just open and people come to you as opposed to you feeling like you're always chasing it, right? Because especially within the chiropractic world, that's why so many chiropractors hate other chiropractors that are successful. Like literally they do, because it's an envy and a jealousy, because they think everybody should be playing this fair game, that everybody should be, and it's all because of a fear-based thing that they don't like the market and sell. That's what at least my opinion on the take of it is. The majority of people, doctors, even entrepreneurs, they don't want to be salespeople, right? And when you don't want to sell, then you try to convince yourself that it should be a fair playing game for everybody. But that's not the way the world works. So you have to be able, if you don't want to be a hard salesman, that's fine, but you have to have a competitive advantage in order to get people to even be interested in what you're offering.
I like that, guys. I hope you wrote some of those down. Those were definitely some golden nuggets, man. Clarity, competence, confidence, and maintaining your authenticity and being true to your own self throughout the journey. Jason, man, that was actually pretty awesome. So this is the part of the show where I like to pretend that someone just joined this broadcast. They haven't heard anything that you said up until this point, so they got to go back and catch the replay. But since they're here, what's the one thing, just one thing that you want them to take away from hearing your voice on this broadcast today?
I would say it's just another phrase that I kind of coined. I'm not even sure. I probably borrowed it from somebody, but decide, execute, and win, right? You have to decide what you want to do, who you want to become, how you're going to give your gifts to the world, right? And then you have to execute on it. We talked a little bit earlier how everybody hides behind their computer in this online entrepreneur world because of that fear of getting out there. It's like, do a damn Facebook Live, man, right? It's like it's fear for everybody. Part of my coaching is even like how to become successful without Facebook Lives. You don't have to do a Facebook Live, but you better figure out the other methods to get there. Right. And that's that extrovert introvert thing. So you have to execute. You have to actually do instead of just stay behind the computer screen and hide all day. And once you do that, once you decide what you're going to do, once you execute the plan, that's when you win. That's when you start seeing the fruits of all the work that you're putting into it.
I like that, man. I absolutely love that. I'll go back and I'm going to write that down on my whiteboard and leave it there. Decide, execute, win. That's a mic drop moment right there, man. So listen, I appreciate you coming on. This has been an amazing conversation. You dropped a ton of knowledge. But I want to give you the chance to tell people how they can follow you, how they can come into your world and get more of Jason, man.
Chiropractors interested in my consulting, I've got strategicpracticeconsultants.com or Facebook page, Strategic Practice Consultants. Get some good information, and my goal, like I know you're out there to do too, as well, is just to help educate people. And I believe the more you give, the more you get. That's one of our coaches, Chad Thibodeau. He talked about the GIVE method, right? I firmly believe in that as well. It's hard when you're struggling to be a giving person, right? When money's tight, when things aren't going well for you, you think me. You think, what do I need? How can I be helped? What can I get for people or get from people? But when you give, when you find yourself giving to the world and saying, hey, Anton, how can I help you build your business? Then all of a sudden, guess what? Anton wants to help me back.
Yeah.
Right. But if I just said, Anton, what can you do for me? We put that wall up. Right. And so we got to be willing to be able to give more to, like, that's why we talk about value ladders and all this, give the free stuff and you give your best stuff. That's what I even do in my office. Like, we charge for 1 or 2 services and I give like 10 extra things on every visit for free. That's normally a billable service. We just write it off. So like what I do charge, I could actually charge 2 to 3 times that, but we try to keep the fees at a reasonable price for our patients too. And we just gift the heck out of everything to where it's like that no-brainer. They're like, what the heck? I'm getting all this for free.
Yeah.
So it's the more you give, the more you're going to get. It's just finding yourself being able to do that during the struggle. Because I believe that's where a lot of people are that watch these podcasts. They're at that struggle point, whether it's they're really struggling or just hitting kind of like that roadblock or, the plateaued moment. It's what we all hit a struggle at some point. We just got to figure out how to get through it. And I really do believe the more value you add other people without expecting something in return, all of a sudden shows up.
For sure. Guys, I encourage you, go check out all of Jason's stuff, man. He's amazing at what he does. And he knows his stuff. He's got a lot of knowledge to give, and I take my hat off to him just for always looking to serve people, always looking to help people, and always looking to improve as well. So, Jason, once again, man, I thank you for taking the time and coming and share your goodness with my audience.
Thank you, man. It's been fun.
Awesome.